It was an amazing SEO vibes conference in Budapest. Let's go back to it for a moment, reminiscing about the incredible guests, lectures, and the party. The conference began with a panel discussion on a boat floating on the Danube.
No, I love White Press. I love these events are amazing. I think they're so well done. I love everyone that I meet. I love everyone that's part of this. So for me, I was actually doing a whole European trip, and then I went back to Chiang Mai where I live, and then I came back just for this, to be here, because I really enjoy being here, and I really enjoy White Press, and the people that I get, like people like yourselves, are just lovely to meet, and I really enjoy being here.
For the first time being here, I'm very surprised about the quality of the organization, about how well everything was prepared. And I'm talking both about the previous evening and also about today. I'm definitely going to come if you guys will invite me in the future. And if you don't invite me as a speaker, I will definitely come as a guest, because you can't stop me to do that.
The conference was or is wonderful. There are lots of friendly people.
I can tell that White Press actually creates the most professional SEO events, not just from the angle of the speeches, but also entire organization for connecting people to each other and helping them to actually introduce themselves, but also meeting with each other too.
Yeah, so I'm also the co-organizer of JPEG Summit in Bucharest, and as an organizer I can say that this event looks wonderful, so you are doing a great job. A lot of attendees. I really like how everyone is asking so many questions, and I really loved the speakers, their content, and how everything was scheduled, and yeah, great job.
Thank you for participating in SEO Vibes in Budapest. Stay tuned for information on where the next editions will take place.
Hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are joining us from. Thank you so much. It's another fantastic White Press spectacular Halloween edition of our famous webinar. But before we get cracking in, can I quickly get a couple of thumbs up in the chat to be absolutely sure that you guys can hear and see us really well, and there are no kind of tech issues there, because I don't want you guys missing out on this episode of our webinar. So I'll probably give it 20 seconds, maybe see a couple of thumbs up coming up in the chat column, and if everything's fine, I would crack on. Excellent. Brilliant. Looks everything's fine. Right, guys, as I said, welcome again to another amazing event, an amazing webinar organized by White Press. My name's Stephen. I'm the head of English markets here at White Press. I'm going to be your host today. But before we start, just a very quick few organizational details and announcements. So as I was saying right at the top of the webinar, this is part of our White Press Academy project. Of course, it's being recorded. You guys would get a link in your email after it's ended. For people who can join us up front, my colleague Helena, who's looking after the tech part, she's going to drop a link in the chat right now. So people who have been a bit late, now probably you guys can still join us. Happy Halloween, guys. What can I say? It's an absolute pleasure to be here today, and trying to have a conversation, a chit chat with a living legend, an SEO legend who's always been, a market disruptor, a trendsetter, someone who I look up to a lot. And it's not just about the topic of the webinar, which is link building. It's just him having the kind of knowledge this person has about the space of SEO, having several chats with him over the last year and a half since I've known him, I've always been spellbounded at the end of every conversation. He was thrusted into the uncertain world of SEO at the age of 12. And still at 28, he's breaking a leg every day. So without further ado, ladies and gents, I present to you Charles Floate. Charles, welcome.
What an intro. Wow, I appreciate that, Stephen. Hi, guys. Nice to meet you all. And I appreciate you all joining us today on this awesome webinar. I know it's a pretty awesome Halloween edition, and I appreciate that I am your local penguin algorithm for today's event. I'm here to disrupt all you naughty SEO spammers.
Brilliant, brilliant. As always, Charlie, always fantastic to have a chat with you. So let's kick things off. Of course, the topic's all about, the bone-chilling trends, what the future holds for link building. Link building has always been such a controversial part of, ranking on Google. People have got different opinions coming through, lots of Google updates, which further disrupt the common perception going out. So let me jump right into it and ask you the first question. How do you think Google's algorithm has changed towards link building in recent years? And what approaches, in your opinion, are riskier now?
Okay, so we're jumping straight into the questions here. No holds barred, nothing easy. So Google's algorithm has changed quite a lot. And despite what people are saying about it being riskier than ever, I actually kind of slightly disagree with that. So the main thing that Google has changed in regards to link building, especially over the last few years, is that they have changed the signal differences. So previously, there used to be far higher levels of toxic links, right? That essentially you'd get either a positive signal or a negative signal, right? And nowadays, Google has far reduced the number of toxic links that are actually out there and increased the number of neutral link signals that are there. So essentially what that means is that you can be building links and they're neutralized. They don't mean anything, they don't do anything. Google doesn't count them as any sort of a metric towards your rankings or your KPIs or anything like that, right? That's my kind of main point around how it's predominantly changed in terms of its approach to Google. Google has made it so that your links don't really hit you anymore. It's just that they don't really give you the effect they used to, whether that be negative or positive, ideally positive, right? In terms of other general changes that algorithm has made towards link building, trust signals have gotten way, way more important. So people talk about EEAT all of the time, right? But one thing they don't really know is that we've had EEAT far before EEAT was a thing in the SEO industry, right? EEAT is in Google's manual quality raters guidelines. So that essentially means that Google's got about 160,000 people all over the world, a mixture of paid and volunteers. And these people sit at home and log into these various applications. The main one is raterhub.org. And they'll log into these websites. They'll be shown a portion of websites, whether it be pages or they're given a website that they need to look at the entire website. Generally, it's page specific. And they'll basically just grade that page. And that has then trained the algorithm, or that's what Google is trying to train the algorithm on, if these pages are helpful or if they're unhelpful. And if they are, if they're quality reviews or if they're unquality reviews, all these different things, right? They're trying to train the algorithm on. People don't realize that those page level signals can still actually affect your backlinks as well, right? So if a helpful content update came around and you think that your entire website's content is helpful, it's high quality, it's the best in the SERP, and you still got hit, a lot of people don't realize that actually, if all of your backlinks content, so all of the links that you built, the content that they're on, if they're suddenly deemed unhelpful, lower quality, all that kind of things, that can have undue effects or unrealized effects on your links, right? So because these pages are now deemed a lower quality score than what they were previously, that link is now not as effective as it was now, right? So your website can be up to scratch and amazing and still get hit by the helpful content update because your links aren't as good as quality and they're now devalued as a signal, right? So a lot of people don't realize that actually algorithms that affect content can still have effects on links, right? Especially if you're not doing the higher quality levels of link building that a lot of people should be aiming towards with this current algorithm. In terms of approaches that are riskier now, right? It's just traditional things. So higher levels of link velocity are more risky, right? Higher levels of random TLDs. So previously you used to be able to use all sorts of .com and .co.uk and things like that, and .net, .ca, all those kind of things in local European languages or other languages, right? Nowadays, you need to have more of the geo-TLDs for those countries to rank. You can't just rank off English links anymore in Norway or in Germany or things, right? You need links in those countries for Google to kind of validate that authenticity and trust signals. And then the final thing is entity. So building up your entity, I call it entity stacking. If you YouTube search entity stacking, my video should be the first video that comes up. Essentially, all it is that you need Google to trust your website and trust your brand and build an entity around that brand. And the way you do that, again, most people think that EEAT is on-page signals when even Google themselves have said that it's 95% off-page signals or links. You need to be building a consensus of information on several link types and several link sources that Google already trusts, right? So things like a Wikipedia page is by far, the number one kind of way to get an entity within Google, just because Google trusts Wikipedia, but by far the number one trusted site, right? Other, citations like Zoom Info or maybe PitchBook or even, websites like Foursquare and things like that. Then you have all these social profiles. So your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter /X, all that kind of stuff, right? Then your press releases, digital PR, all sorts of stuff that are essentially contributing to your entity and your brand.
Brilliant, brilliant. There you go, guys. As I was saying right at the top of the webinar, that is some uncut, ahead of the curve information coming from Charles. So as you said, Charlie, it comes down to being on the ball all the time and looking at what trends, testing a lot of stuff. I know legends like yourselves have always said, don't just believe what you're reading, test it, put it to test, and then make your own, opinions about it. It all comes down to testing, which brings me to our second question, which is quite personal to us here at YPress. Are guest posts still an effective link building tactic? And part B of that question, if yes, then what pitfalls should I watch out for?
Yeah, so 100% guest posts never fell off as in terms of, are they effective or not effective, right? They have fallen off in terms of their effectiveness, but they are not effective anymore, right? And the reason they've fallen off is multiple reasons, right? It's not just one singular reason. It's not even twofold. There's multiple reasons contributing to it. The main reason, in my opinion, and what I've been screaming about for people for years with their guest posts, is that people are building orphan guest posts. So that essentially means it's an orphan link, which means that link doesn't have other links going to it. It doesn't have internal links from the website linking to it. It doesn't have social signals. It doesn't have comments. It doesn't have user engagement signals. It doesn't have any other signals to validate that page is a quality page on its own, and thus give that page a signal that it can pass on to your page, right? So again, Google it didn't make them toxic. It just made them neutral. So now you can't have orphan links anymore. Yes, you can get away with an article on a DR90 site with amazing traffic numbers and things like that, and that can be orphan. But generally speaking, most of your guest posts need to have other links, other internal links, other backlinks, social signals, the whole lot, right? You need to have it contributing in a holistic way to make your links, like I said before, quality pages themselves. Right. And the way that you do that is often through the signals. And as I said before, even if you do have those DR90 guest posts that are orphan links and they are okay at contributing a positive signal, they still be significantly better if they weren't orphan pages. Right. So in my opinion, that's the number one reason, is that Google has effectively kind of killed off a lot of pages that are standalone pages and that are orphan pages, and that they need some significant signals to kind of prop them up and thus pass a signal. The second reason is that Google's algorithm has got a lot better at training for quality signals, right? So because what I was saying earlier, with a load of manual raters just pressing yes or no on pages and then being shown guest post pages over and over and over again with very limited rich media, very limited content depth, very generic content, all of these things, right? So where I would previously say you could get away with using spun content or AI content or this kind of stuff, right? And you still can to a degree, right? I'm never going to say, this stuff doesn't work categorically, it doesn't work, because it still does in some nuanced cases. But generally speaking, it's not going to work for the majority of people that are going to go out and do that. And you need an experience level and a knowledge base and this kind of stuff to be able to carry it out successfully. But in general, I would say that pitfalls to watch out for are going to be using really cheap or generic content, not matching your relevancy properly to the page. So a lot of people build a sheet of URLs and anchor text that they want to build, and then whichever sites accept the guest post or whichever site that they can get first, that's the link that they build, and they go from top to bottom. But actually what you should be doing is trying to match the relevancy of the domain you're building links on to the relevancy of the link you're trying to build, right? And there's going to be certain websites and certain pages that you're going to be able to build links that are going to pass better signals than if you don't do that domain matching to the page matching where you're trying to build links. And a lot of the time, what you should be really extra trying to do is trying to build links at pages. So go out and finding sites for specific pages, or finding pages for specific pages, which you can do reverse niche edit, link building, reverse link insertions. Or you can try and make sure that you're just using a fantastic service like WhitePress, who's going to take care of it for you, as long as you're going down the route of using the highest level quality content on the platform, right? And making sure that you're not cheaping out on the surrounding signals, the content, and not going with just the cheapest option, because the cheapest option, right? You want to be making sure that you're going with the best possible option that's going to give you the highest possible ROI. And that normally comes with, like I said, a bit of experience, a bit of knowledge base of running these kind of link campaigns. A lot of beginners, I would recommend that you speak to an expert before you just carry out link building campaigns. Otherwise, you can end up burning your website pretty harsh.
I agree. Great answer. And I know that, funnily enough, when it comes to link building, we onboard 10 new clients every day. And weirdly enough, even though link building seems to be one of the easiest parts of SEO, a lot of them come in and say, guys, we've never done it. You're the experts, right? What is the current trend and what's the best way of getting my ROI? So, that's why having these kind of webinars, having conversations with people like yourselves, reading a lot, testing stuff. We got a dev team, they do a lot of testing as well. That keeps us ahead of the curve. But yeah, 100%, I agree with you. However, it leads me to my third question, because you were talking about internal linking. So what do you think? How can internal linking strategies be optimized to improve the distribution of link equity?
Yeah, so it's going to be nuanced depending on the website, obviously. So some websites need to de-optimize their internal linking. Some websites don't have internal linking, things like that, right? The amount of sites that I go on to, and they've invested tens of thousands of dollars into a content campaign, a blogging campaign, but each blog campaign has like 1 or 2 internal links, right? That's nowhere near enough. Realistically, my accurate kind of goal or target is for every 100 to 200 words, you have got a contextual relevant internal link. In terms of strategies to improve link equity distribution, right? There's rules to internal linking. So the first rule is that you don't want to be linking, at least contextually, twice from one page to another. So it's totally fine if you're linking from your menu, right? From your navigation elements for once, and then you're linking within the content as a second link, because the navigation elements are discounted and Google doesn't count those as internal links, right? It's only within the body of the content that's counted, and some sidebar links and some footer links if Google hasn't kind of processed them as footer and sidebar links. But any kind of non-contextual link where it's within your other elements apart from your body content is devalued by Google. So you want to make sure that you're optimizing the links inside of your content as much as possible by only linking once to one other page. You don't want to be linking twice within that content. You want to be using the most effective anchor text depending on how authoritative the page you're linking from is. So obviously, if you've got 10 pages linking internally to one page, I would choose the anchor text depending on the most competitive anchor text at the top, linking to the most authoritative page. So if my number 1 page has got 10 referring domains and my bottom page has got none, then I'm going to put my most competitive anchor text internally on the page with 10 RD, and I'm going to put my least competitive anchor text on the one with 0 RD, right? Sure. Because it's going to pass the most equity and the most signal on the page which actually has authority and link equity in the first place. Then the third thing is that for some reason, there's this obsession with linking out to authority websites in Google, right? There's this whole SEO concept, and I don't fully know where it came from in the first place, that people like to link out to other authority websites, like WebMD and Wikipedia, and even like Amazon. For some reason, people are now linking out to Amazon randomly. I don't know where that's come from, but they're linking out to these other websites because they think that it improves their quality signal, when actually all it does is reduce your link equity and potentially actually send links to competing pages that might actually outrank your page or another page in the SERP, when that site and that page has already got tens of millions of sites linking to it, right? So you don't need to be doing that extra additional style of linking out to authority sites on top, and it's just going to reduce the amount of link equity that you're distributing to your other internal links as well.
I agree. It all comes down to there's so much faff out in the market when it comes to, what sites should be good to connect to, and everyone's got this opinion, which brings me to that next question, which our clients, existing and the new ones, yes, they are becoming aware, right? The quality of backlinking has to be quite accurate, very niche relevant. So we, of course, give our expert opinions as to, right, after doing an audit and everything, how you should be doing it. But I'd love to hear it from you. How do you evaluate the quality and relevance of a backlink, and how do you identify and prioritize link building opportunities to pursue?
Yeah, so the first part of that, obviously, the way I measure the quality and relevance and things is how much of an impact it had on the rankings, right? So if I link to a site and it goes up the next day considerably in rankings, then I'm saying that link's probably a pretty damn good link, right? But if I put a link in it and 2 months later the page hasn't moved, then it's probably a neutralized link, and I try and track that as much as possible to make sure that we have got a significant amount of data on which sites we shouldn't be building links from in the future, because that sent a neutral signal to a site. And then hopefully what we can do in the future is, once we have thousands of websites, we can start comparing them for nuances comparing them for a consensus of what Google is knocking down in their algorithm, right? So that's the future hope with that. In terms of how do I identify and prioritize link building opportunities, the first one is just going to be power, authority, and relevancy, right? So how authoritative and relevant do I think that page is to another page on my website? And a lot of people prioritize money pages, but I actually prioritize supporting pages. And that's, again, twofold. The first reason I prioritize linking to supporting pages rather than money pages is that actually Google's link hit, so the negative link association, is only page level. So if your link, so it only affects the page you link to. And if one of my supporting piece of content goes down in rankings, I don't really care, right? But if my money page goes down in rankings, I do care quite a lot. So linking to my supporting pages adds a kind of buffer zone to stop my page from actually being deranked. The second reason, and kind of my main reason, to be honest, is because supporting content, you're going to internally link to at least 5, 10, 15 other pages, right, on your site, maybe 10 other money pages on your website. A money page, you're probably going to link maybe once or twice to another page on your site, because you're going to be prioritizing linking to things that customers can buy or customers can spend money on, or ads or things like that, right? So I try to make sure that I'm linking to my supporting pages so that I can distribute more of that link equity to more pages on my site, and I'm protecting my pages from that site as well. So I generally kind of try to prioritize the link building opportunities on whichever one is going to send the most powerful signal to a piece of supporting content, and thus that ongoing signal will distribute to the other pages on my website.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. All right, my lovely audience. Let's give Charlie a bit of a breather for like 30 seconds. Let him finish off his pumpkin spice latte. I'm sure you guys have your warm cup as well with you. Just a reminder again, if you do want constant access to our high quality knowledge and other databases, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel as well as to our other social media channels as well. Now, a massive announcement, very, very dear to me. So we're actually teaming up with Charlie early next year in February, and we'll be having this exclusive VIP event, SEO event in Dubai. And you name it, it's going to be 3 days of fantastic networking. We got luxury yachts, lots of sun, lots of SEO legends all around the planet. They'll all be converging in Dubai. guess what, guys? Early bird tickets have been on sale for the last 2 weeks. Today actually is the last day where you can avail the early birds. And then beginning tomorrow, the prices, of course, go up. But trust me, it's always been, it's not the amount of money you guys are spending, it's the value you get out of it. So if you want Charles up close and personal, make sure you guys go on to that, click on that link now and make sure you do purchase these tickets. Because trust me, that kind of event, it's never happened before. White Press, along with Charles, we kind of go hand in hand when it comes to, you know, being trendsetters. So this is an event you cannot miss. This is the World Cup of SEO conferences, if I can say that. Brilliant. Excellent. Let's move on. You were talking about content, Charles, and of course, with the AI coming in, you know, it's such a massive area of people having difference of opinions, you know, AI, non-AI, what should be. So let me ask you, what type of content have you found to be the most effective for earning natural or organic backlinks?
Yeah, so link bait is essentially the way you go about it, and it's very niche dependent, right? So some niches are going to be better at others at certain areas. So if you take, for example, one of our clients, the best way we started organically building links for him, because his niche is super boring and no one cares about it, right? it makes good money, but no one cares about it, right? It's really boring. Even he says it's like, I hate my job. I great money, but I hate my job, right? But stuff like that, the only real way we kind of would earn organic natural links from him and would help him essentially be one of the front runners of the industry was running industry surveys, because then other companies and other organizations and things would link to him, because it would be backing of industry news and things, right? And then anything around statistics, facts, data, history. And then you can also, in other industries, there are certain keywords that you can kind of use. So infographics, swipe files, press packs, all of this stuff, which can get you quotations or links or things like that as well. But in general, by far the best type of content is generally content that you can rank and then organically gets traffic from people who are going to link to you. And obviously that's, like I said, statistics, numbers, facts, data, history, that kind of stuff is by far the biggest stuff, because people are always searching for that information, and then we'll just organically link to it because that's the source that they got it from. If they don't, even if they don't organically link to it, a lot of people will share that stuff on their socials, or they'll put it into articles on LinkedIn and Medium and things like that. And they're still fantastic sources of links and even signals if they're not link based.
Okay, brilliant. Right, let's move on to kind of another factor, because this has always bothered me since the time I got into the SEO space working for White Press is, right, okay, what's the future? How link building is going to evolve, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, with, Google kind of upping its game, links being relevant, not relevant, loads of opinions out there. What do you think currently are the emerging link building tactics you believe will become more prevalent and more kind of useful in the near future?
Yeah, so the first thing is that I think links, a lot of people think that Google's going to devalue links, and I actually think it's going to be the complete opposite. And I think that's been shown in recent times because of how powerful Parasite SEO and things like that have been working, because link building has got more important as AI content has become more prevalent, and Google can't use anything to detect that AI content. So Google actually did a massive 180 and then another 180 and then another 180, right? So if you think about it, in the space of 12 months, Google has changed their mind rapidly. So last September, October, using AI content in Google was banned. It was classed as spam. It was classed as black hat. It was against Google's guidelines to use AI content in the SERPs. 3 months after that, so around in like November, December time, Google actually AI content that's helpful. So generally speaking, that's AI content that's human edited, heavily human edited, is actually allowed, and that's totally fine. And then they were like, actually, all AI content that is helpful is allowed. It doesn't have to be edited. It doesn't have to be fact-checked. It just has to be quote unquote helpful. And then 3 months after that, Google's like, actually, we're going to do Google SGE and we're going to use AI to summarize your articles. And now we're using AI content ourselves. So in the space of 12 months, Google completely changed their mind and opinion and everything on AI content. So I think that's kind of evident towards Google's opinion on where AI is moving. And it's almost Microsoft has kind of forced their hand into having to adopt AI and try to be the market leader, because OpenAI and Microsoft were the market leader. They still are, to be fair, but Google Bard is trash, and there's various reasons for it. In terms of the emerging link building tactics that are working and that will be working better, it's going to be the digital PR, organic link building, link bait, that kind of stuff on top of the entity building stuff. So instead of trying to get a guest post on Forbes, you want to get your CEO interviewed on Forbes, right? So that you can build and contribute to your entity, and you can build and contribute to the people that are around your site, so that Google can actually trust and authenticate that as a real business and validate it, right? And believe in how trustworthy that site is. The problem is that Google has no way to validate anything in the real world. And so you need to build all of these signals for it to validate it in the first place. And so I think that style of link building, so it's entity stacking, foundational link building, entity building, all of that style of link building, that's going to become far more prevalent, to the point that if you build a new website, you will not be able to rank it without some form of entities to back it up and to help crawl budget and all that kind of stuff, and just general trust signals. In terms of other emerging stuff, I think that actually PBNs are going to be, despite what a lot of people say, they're going to become, and they sort of are, going through a renaissance of their ability to rank sites. And that's generally because Google's controlling the content factors, they're controlling the domain factors, they've neutralized links and all this sort of stuff. So it's far easier to control the output of that PBN now, to manipulate the signals to make it seem like it's a quality signal and do all these other things. And then people have got end control over that link. So the main issue that a lot of link builders and a lot of SEOs have is that they don't own the sites that they're getting links from, and thus they have no ability of control over that link. And most SEOs like control. That's why when Google algorithm updates massively take out their site and they're thinking that they're doing everything right, they get a big wake-up call, and it's quite damaging for a lot of people's egos and stuff, right? So yeah. I actually believe that Google will move away from a lot of the traditional style of link building, and it will be more pronounced on the trust signal side of link building, and that you'll just need to be building as much around your entity and proving to Google that you're an expert and that you're trustworthy and this kind of stuff. And it's still very easy to manipulate that. And it's all of it is just going to be who has the biggest budgets and things at the end of the day, which it always has been realistically. And it's just whoever has the best people carrying out the biggest budgets work, right?
I agree. I remember once you told me a few months ago, probably in Birmingham, where, let's face it, guys, everyone kind of bows down to Google, but hang on a second, they're answerable to their board members, the shareholders, the investors, right? So it proves to me, when you were talking about AI content, how within the last 12 months, Google changed its stance on AI content like 3 or 4 times, you know? So I think it's their decisions are also based how they see the market perceiving and accepting or rejecting certain trends, and then kind of moving ahead with it, because of course they still need to make money on it. You know, it's Google's not running a charity. So yeah, I agree. By the way, talking about that, I've always been intrigued where, you know, you kind of part of the shareholders kind of meeting in Google all the time, and you get to hear all these, you know, secrets, and you kind of, you know, go ahead and you test certain stuff. But I'll leave it for another day to have a further conversation on it. Right, talking about all these updates, so how do you see, have any recent algorithm updates by Google, have they influenced any of the link building strategies?
Yeah, so definitely, I was speaking to Kai Cromwell, and I was speaking to Kazra Dash and a few other people recently for my YouTube channel, and all of them have been saying that basically guest posting has been devalued. But again, when we've kind of deeper dived into it, that's actually that they've been devaluing specific signals around that style of guest posting, not that they've just hit guest posting in total sum, and that if we've actually been investing additional time and resources and things, that those guest posts are probably working better than they were previously. And that because once you do those quality checks, and once you kind of just literally checked off the box of things that Google's looking for in signals, that signal is now turbocharged from what it was previously, because Google has deemed it quality, helpful, that all of these metrics and KPIs that weren't previously there.
I agree. Sticking that, there was one question I actually wanted to ask you right at the end, but I'm going to jump right to the end now, and I'll ask you that now, because we've been talking about link building and guest posting. Right. Why does the guest posting industry or link building industry, why does it have such an absolute shambolic reputation? There are many answers there, but I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I think it's, again, there's multiple reasons, and they're kind of prioritized. The first reason would probably be the style people are outreaching, right? Like site owners, bloggers, everyone's just pissed off with, hello, sir, dear madam, can you look at this? How much is it for this guest post on a casino site? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone just hates that email box. And especially if you're a blogger and half your email box is outreach, SEO, guest posts, buy this, buy link, how much, right? They just innately dislike it and think that it's spammy and that it's potentially even scammy and things like that, right? So there's that innate distrust that because you're being exposed to all of this email spam because you own a blog, that you then just don't trust the SEO industry. And I don't blame them, if it's totally fine and it's totally fair. And I think it's on the SEO industry that we did too much outreach to the point we've kind of ruined outreach. And that is to my point as well, that when we've looked at the percentage of replies that we get, so we never ask people, can we buy a guest post? We normally ask them how to get a guest post or how much is a guest post, right? And the percentage of people that we wouldn't ask upfront if it would cost us, just how do we get one? And the percentage of people that would reply to say they needed money went from like 30% or maybe even 25% 5-6 years ago to like 85% now, right? So I would just make sure that people are very aware that you'll be if you're doing outreach, 85% of sites are going to ask you for money, right? And so if you don't want to spend money on links, you don't want to buy links, and this is your ethical or moral dilemma, however much that is kind of put on you by a mega corporation that themselves have been in various legal troubles and criminal battles and things, I would say that you're going to be losing out on 85% of the potential links that your competitors are going to be getting. So you're just putting yourself at a devalued and a bit of a additional time resource, when actually money is a finite resource. Money is an infinite resource and time is a finite resource. Then I would make sure that you're kind of taking into consideration how much your morals is willingness to pay $5 for a link versus spending 5 hours to get the same link, right? Sure. So that's kind of the first reason. The second reason is that there's so many cowboys in link building, right? So I've owned a link building agency that I sold, and then I've worked with dozens of link building agencies. And there's a lot of link building agencies that, number one, will sell websites on a basis that they'll pick the sites for you, and that then you get the links, right? So with WordPress, you guys, obviously, people go and select the sites that they want to buy and then they buy them. That's fine, because then the due diligence process is on them and they have to do the due diligence, that kind of stuff, right? A lot of agencies, the issue is they'll prioritize profit over results for clients, which I think is kind of stupid, right? Because essentially all you're doing is prioritizing that one sale over potentially getting a customer for life, right? So they'll try and make sure that if a customer spends $10,000 with them, that they're trying to make as high a profit margin as possible, rather than putting them on as quality sites and as relevant sites as possible, and thus burning that client in effect, because they're getting lower quality, cheaper links that actually probably shouldn't be paying that money for, to a degree of, in some cases 10x, 20x, right? And then mix that on top with loads of cowboys that are selling links that aren't actually those links. Yeah. So people will sell editorials and then it'll on like a DR95 and it's a medium.com article, right? Which is free to build. So stuff like that. Then people sell guest posts or niche edits and they're on their own PBN, which is really poorly made, right? All stuff like that. So there's just all of these reasons why there's cowboys. It's actually quite difficult to run successful link campaigns in the first place. And there's also just this mass outreach that's pissing off all the site owners in the first place and making them know how much they should be charging, or that they know that they should be charging money, and thus suddenly a DR30 website wants $400 for a guest post on their site, right? And all of this stuff is just contributing to the reputation of the industry basically going down the drain. And a lot of it doesn't just affect the link building industry. People put link building and SEO in the same bucket, and thus SEO is now a spammy and scammy industry, even though actually it was just this segment of the industry that a lot of people in the industry don't even like it being a part of the industry, right?
Yeah. But I think I keep saying it to my colleagues here at WordPress. That's where the opportunity lies, within that chaos, because no one's speaking the language where you can build trust with the client. And that's what WordPress has been fantastic at. What you said, on our platform, people see all the links, so that transparency is there. People are not paying an arm or a leg for a link, and being, to be honest, upfront about it. Things you can deliver, you should be doing that. There are a lot of clients, they ask us for guarantees, right? So if I do that for 6 months, can you guarantee I'm going to move up? And my standard answer, or anyone at WordPress, has always been, listen, if any SEO agency is giving you a guarantee, he or she is going to do that, run a mile. Because let's face it, we're all playing that game of chess with Google. Yes, we try to follow the best practices, all of that. But hang on a second, we can't convince or influence Google in a way where we can guarantee. Try your best, give them case studies, and then hopefully things will fall into place. But I agree. But I think, as I was saying, within that chaos, that opportunity is there. And if you're hitting those 3 pillars of which all comes down to trust and some sort of ROI come in, people would generally be okay with that. Brilliant. Right, next one. I'd like to kind of touch on the behavior and engagement matrix, how potentially they're influencing the value of backlinks.
Yeah, so I'm not a massive believer in this, right? So I don't believe that there's a ton of user engagement signals that are necessarily influencing how much of a quality backlink you are, because that would also then take into a ton of additional processing from Google's algorithm and things, and then comparing data sets rather than just comparing the algo versus the one data set of the index, right? Yeah. So I do believe that there is something to be said about traffic between links and things like that. I've definitely had some links from viral news stories and viral pieces and viral sites and stuff that, because they've probably had a ton of traffic, they haven't actually picked up a lot of links, but they've got like 1 million visits in a week. Those pages have given us insane signals, right? Way bigger than they should have on their own without that traffic. But obviously that's quite difficult and almost impossible really to consistently produce with a link building campaign. So that's why I try to not focus too much on those areas. The only areas that I can focus on that is obviously when it comes to like niche edits and link insertions. I try to make sure that if I'm buying a link on a page, that page has got rankings and traffic, because that kind of validates that Google already trusts it, thinks it's a quality page, right? Especially if it's #1 for a couple fairly decent keywords, then that page is definitely going to be a good signal that you're going to be able to send to your site. But again, I don't think that there's much going on yet with Google's user behavior signals. I think once it gets cheaper to run this kind of processing with algorithms, and once Google's upgraded their data centers and all this kind of stuff, right, in like a year or 2 years or 3 years down the line, that's when they'll become significantly more important. And there is certain stuff, obviously, with other platforms. So with YouTube, for example, right, the YouTube rankings do correlate to your SERP rankings or your organic rankings, right? So you can rank in Google with YouTube videos based on their user engagement signals because of how they did in YouTube's algorithm, right? So there are certain things that do come into play. And then obviously people use YouTube videos as links themselves and all sorts of things like that. But again, that's coming into areas that I don't particularly play with, and that it's not worth my time to be producing stuff like that. I just generally put YouTube channels as part of my entity stack rather than YouTube videos as part of a link building strategy. So yeah, I think that they're not that important at the moment. Traffic is probably by far the #1 important metric there. Everything else will become more important as time goes on and as Google gets better and upgrades their algorithm and their hardware.
Brilliant, brilliant. Quick message to the audience here, guys. There will be kind of 5 minutes right at the end where you get to ask some questions to Charles. So I can see a couple of questions coming in. So, you know, make sure you're clarifying any doubts. This is the opportunity. I just have 2 more questions to ask you, Charles, if that's okay. And then we can get to the audience questions, yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant. Right. How does the position of a link on a page and the surrounding context impact its SEO value?
Yeah, so 100%, there's loads of patterns around the surrounding words or the surrounding context of a link to be able to show how valuable and how relevant that link is. And it makes a ton of sense, right? There's only so much relevancy you're going to be able to get from the anchor text itself. You need to be able to take in that context to be able to see if it's relevant link or not. So there is a lot to be said around the surrounding context and surrounding text, and there's a lot of case studies around optimizing the surrounding text for specific words and variations of the keyword that then play an effect in the rankings of those keywords. However, with the position of a link, I don't think that matters too much, aside from the fact that obviously if you put it in the navigation elements, or if you put it right at the bottom of the page, that could potentially have negative impacts, especially if you have 10 links all at the bottom of the page, you know, linking out to these. A lot of people put their citations all at the bottom of the page and just link to the URL. That's totally fine, but that obviously will affect how much link value you're going to be having onto that page. But again, when you're doing citations, you don't really care about links and stuff. Sure. It's more to do with the surrounding context than the position. Position doesn't really affect it unless it's cloaking or it's within the navigation elements.
Okay, interesting. Last question then. You were talking about the EEAT thing a little while earlier, so I'm going to, ask that question. So what metrics or indicators can be used to measure the EEAT of a person, and how does the EEAT impact link building strategies, particularly in choosing link targets?
Right, so it's pretty hard to measure the EEAT of a person. The only way to really measure it is by Googling them and seeing what Google displays as their entity, right? So I would say it's pretty difficult to kind of measure anyone's EEAT, and that's why Google themselves have found it very difficult to measure EEAT. And that's why if you look up various people, they get the pictures wrong or the names wrong, or they put this person's bio for this person and things like that. So Google's own entity database is far from perfect, and it doesn't often match things properly together. And thus that's why you need to match it for them, basically, and build the consensus for them, build the entity for them. In my opinion, EEAT does impact link building strategies if you don't initially build them, right? So that's where I'm talking about like the entity stacking and the foundational links and stuff. If you don't build your EEAT stack in the first place and build your entity stack in the first place, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to rank for a lot of keywords, especially YMYL keywords and things like that, because Google just doesn't trust your website. So you have to build those trust signals in your content, which means you're going to have to build hundreds or thousands of pages of high quality content, and all of your core pages, your about, all of your policies, your terms. There's even stuff around like EDI policies, human slavery statements, things like that, accessibility, all sorts of additional things that you can kind of throw in there. And you have to build all of those out to kind of be trusted within Google if you don't build those links, right? And that's considerably more work than the kind of 10 hours it takes to build your social profiles and citations with a good enough description and all of your correct and same name, address, phone number, website URL, opening hours, everything, right? People, company size, founded date, everything you can imagine that would be kind of the facts behind your company. You want to build that consensus out by having it the same across the board on all of these different sites. And that is far easier to build through the link building strategies than it is through your on-page strategies.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, let's get into the section of where the audience has probably got a couple of questions to ask. There's not much time left, so I'll try squeeze in a couple of questions here. So here we go. Naughty Nerds. I know that's Tom Johnsey from Nautilus Marketing. So as the question says, what is a good number of backlinks to build each month?
Yeah, so that depends on the style of your website, right? If you have a 10-page website versus a 10,000-page website, you can build a lot more pages. Sorry, you can build a lot more links to individual pages if you're building them to individual pages rather than just at one target page over the course of a month. Likewise, it depends on the type of links that you're building. If you're building your entity stack, you can build 200 profile and citation links and things like that over the course of a month, totally fine. But if you build 200 guest posts or niche edits to a brand new website over the course of a month, that's not fine. And you're probably going to have some issues. So it's very dependent on each specific website. And I would make sure that you are kind of creating it based on link velocity. And so how many pages you're building, what types of links you're building, how old your website is, how indexed it is, how it's done in recent algorithm updates, how trusted you think it is with Google, and then obviously the link building strategy that you're executing. So if you are just building niche edits, then you want to be a lot more conservative than if you're building niche edits, guest posts, digital PR, link bait, and doing the whole holistic link building campaign. Obviously allows you to build more links than if you're just building an individual link type as well. And then you have additional things like PBNs and stuff like that that can disrupt the level of link juice that you're building. And thus you want to be building less of them, because obviously if you're building 20, 30, 40 homepage WordPress links all in the same week, that's another negative signal. A lot of it is to do with just de-triggering Google. So removing Google's ability to raise red flags on your link building, and that making your link building look as natural and organic as possible, and just not trying to overdo certain signals, not trying to be super clever with percentages of this anchor text and this velocity of this ratio. Just make sure that you are building it at a consistent and natural rate and building it as high quality as possible. And if that means spending an extra hour on the individual link to make sure that link is 10 quality points higher than the previous link you just built, that is a worthwhile worthwhile point of your time, right?
Sure.
So just making sure that you're building links in terms of your own situation, and making sure that you are matching that website, matching the aids, the velocity, everything to that site is where you're going to win.
Okay, mate. We've actually got one more question here from Christian. Is Parasite SEO worth using?
Yes, 100%. I think it's definitely worth using. And I think with Google SGE, it's going to effectively be the only way to control Google SGE's output, because with SGE, you have to have multiple pages ranking in the SERP, and you have to have a consensus, which means you have to have 50% of the pages or more ranking in the SERP with the same information to be able to control what SGE says. And the only way you get 5 or more websites and pages ranking in the top 10 positions is via Parasite SEO, or being a billionaire and being able to buy every website in the SERP and being able to build pages on them, right? Those are basically the only 2 methods that you can go about it. Otherwise, you have to use Parasite SEO to effectively control that output. Now, currently, Google did go after Parasite SEO with their last 2 updates. And I take some level of responsibility for that, to be honest, because I think I maybe made it too popular in Google's kind of world, and thus they were getting tweeted at by everybody in the industry saying, why is Outlook India outranking my lovely niche knitting blog, right? And thus they kind of have been slapping it. That does not mean that just because Google went after it, it doesn't work anymore, right? Google have gone after a lot of things. Matt Cutts 15 years ago said guest blogging is dead, and it's probably had more people spend money on it than ever this year. So I wouldn't listen to a lot of that stuff anyway. What I would say is that it's more important than ever that you're matching the sites that you're building Parasite SEO to the SERP. And that effectively means that you're matching the relevancy or the power of that specific site, because some sites are going to be more relevant to your keywords than others. So you're going to be wanting to do that analysis to see which site's the most relative and most relevant to your SERP, to be able to rank those pages, because Google has been slapping these just generic authorities, like I said, like Outlook India. There's been like Dallas News, Times Union, all sorts of sites that just blew up. They were doing like 100 million visits a month or so a couple of months ago, and Google has slapped them, but they've lost 40%, 60% of their traffic. Right? It's not 100% loss by any means of the imagination. And if you right now Google best essay writing or best essay writers or best essay writing service or essay writing service or anything around that niche, the top 3 or even the top 5, maybe even the top 10 will all be Parasite SEO pages right now. So that's a prime example of Parasite SEO taking over a SERP. So I would make sure that you are utilizing it if you have got the capital, you've got the time, and you've kind of maximized the ability of your own website, or if you think that your website is going to struggle to rank in that niche, or it is struggling to rank in that niche, that could be the Parasite SEO opportunity to kind of take over. And even if you are ranking number one in that niche, Parasite SEO could be the opportunity to knock out your competition and rank number 2, number 3, number 4, so that literally the entire every user that Googles that SERP is going to click on your link one way or another.
Yeah. I somehow see that since July. I think when you tweeted out just after the Birmingham event about Parasite SEO, it just went absolutely viral, absolutely mental. Everyone was talking about Parasite SEO. But as you rightfully said, it still works. And if people are too scared, I think probably put it on the back burner for a couple of months, let things die down a bit and then pick things up. Right. I think we can squeeze in one last question here from Shimon, which is, how should niche site homepage look like besides recent posts?
Again, it's like nuance to the individual niche and things like that, right? But there are some fantastic examples of sites that you can go and look at. So Sammy Ellard King has a really good one on his website, up, I can't remember what it's called actually at this point. And then there's loads of other sites, epicgardening.com, right? I just try to make sure that you have a CTA at the top. So your homepage is going to be your most visited page because people are going to be visiting your site, and then users will just naturally click on your logo, edit the URL, things like that. They're going to visit your homepage, right? Inevitably, you will get users visiting the homepage more than other pages on your website. There might be, posts that are having more traffic, but over time, right, your homepage is going to be the most visited. And thus, right at the beginning of your homepage, I want you to put something that earns you money or that creates value for your website. So too many people start putting recent posts on the top of their site, but that just generates traffic potentially if that user thinks that those posts are relevant, and they might not be relevant to that user. What is going to be relevant to the majority of users is something that's going to earn you an EPC. So that's earnings per click. And all I recommend that you do in the very start of your website is have something that increases your EPC. So that's either products, it's affiliate links, it's an email sign up, it's social signups, it's something that is going to create, or it's lead magnets, it's anything that's going to create EPC for your website. That's the very first thing I want at the top of the site. Underneath that, it doesn't really matter, right? It's just going to be building towards a homepage that looks real, looks authentic, and that has additional signals. You can have recent posts, you can have an about box, you can have company information, you can have event information, you can have top 10 posts, you can have all sorts of things. Just make that homepage look real. Don't make it look like it's a spammy blog that just has those recent posts in the 10 recent posts listed with a square image box, a title and a description, and a read more button. That looks spammy, right? Make sure that you have something that something of value and that's something that is generating your higher EPC.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, unfortunately, there are more questions there, but we've run out of time. However, I'm pretty sure people can find you. I'm sure, Charles, you're doing a lot of stuff when it comes to training, courses. I think one of your ebooks went live as well, which is what called SEO Millionaires. But I think people can still kind of get in touch with you. What is it? Twitter, charlesfloate.com? Are there any other ways?
Yeah, so charlesfloatetraining.com is my main kind of training website where you can get access to all my free downloads and my premium courses, ebooks, audits, consultancy, link building, the whole lot. And then in terms of Twitter, at Charles_SEO. My YouTube is just my name, Charles Floate. I've started to upload every single week to that channel. There's a video coming out in about 3 hours from now on the channel with Joe Davies from Fat Joe. And then there's also my LinkedIn. So just LinkedIn, Charles Floate as well. I've only recently started in the last month or so posting on there, but it's a pretty good platform, and I'm going to be posting there consistently more as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant. And also, guys, people who would be visiting the Chiang Mai conference in a week's time, Charlie's going to be there. So, buy him a gin and tonic or a bottle of gin and a couple of bottles of gins and, sit down next to him. And I'm sure he can spend 10, 15 minutes of his precious time and, give a further insight. Well, Charles, once again, thank you so much. It's been an honor. It's been invigorating. I'm drenched with SEO knowledge now. I've always been every time I've had this conversation with you. I look forward to meeting you early next week. And yeah, let's pick up SEO in Chiang Mai then.
Yep, I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to seeing everybody at Chiang Mai and Dubai.
Excellent. Cheers then. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.